Hello there everybody, welcome back to the Groundswell Ecosystem's YouTube channel. Everyday and systemic steps to an eco-positive groundswell. I'm Nicola Kench and this is Green Education Counts, eco-education for all. Environmental education is a human right. You have the right to know. This is Unit 2, Power, Fossil Fuels versus Renewable Energy. Yes, this educational program is comprised of 6 units. Unit 1, the environment, 3 key questions. What is global warming? What is the world doing about it? And what can you do about it? Unit 2, power, fossil fuels versus renewable energy. Unit 3, consumption, what we use and how we use it. Unit 4, waste, making our waste useful. Unit 5, protection, what do we need to protect and why. Unit 6 is going forward, you count all the steps in which you can make a difference. As I've explained, this project, Green Education Counts, is available on multiple platforms. In-class teaching, downloadable workbook via my website, groundswellecosystems.com, with assessment materials, or the YouTube videos, and the YouTube videos with electronic quiz. The link is in the description box below. Yes, so there's space through this program for everybody to learn in a way that suits them. As you know, my plan with this is to crunch big concepts right down into the palm of your hand so that you can understand them clearly in plain speak and understand as well some clear, simple steps to do something about these issues. I just want to say, coming up here, I just want to say a huge thank you as well to all new subscribers to the channel. Like, share, subscribe, hit the bell, and you'll get all notifications for any future videos, previous projects as I post more videos, and projects that I'm also working on that are forthcoming. Thank you so much for the support. Right, so this is Unit 2, Power. And I kind of think of this unit as the kind of elephant in the room unit, because it's kind of so obvious that somehow we don't see it. All right? And yet, of course, it is critically important, because power is the power by which we run our lives. So if this unit seems a little bit kind of like, whoa, all right, this unit is actually derived from the amount of conversations I've had with people where I've said, where are you getting your power from? And they don't know. And they don't understand that, in fact, they can very much so do something about it. So that's what this unit, Power, is dedicated to, understanding our power sources and understanding what kind of power we have to change our power sources. Firstly, it's very much worth a reminder to actually list what fuel, what power, what energy sources we use in our lives. Now, of course, there's electricity, everything that goes, all of our lights, all of our equipment, all of our power. And of course, we have gas, responsible for the gas boiler, heating our homes, cooking. Okay. Of course, in terms of transport, we have petrol, all right, which is derived from oil, which is, of course, a fossil fuel. So I've simplified them down into electricity, gas and petrol are the main fuels with which we run our lives. So as you know, this unit is power, fossil fuels versus renewable energy. So the question is, how do we get our electricity from fossil fuels? We covered fossil fuels in Unit 1, what they are, where they come from, and what their effect is. Obviously, with the byproduct carbon dioxide, which is creating our greenhouse effect and thus our problem of global warming. So let's look at electricity. How do we get electricity from fossil fuels? Well, simply put, by burning them. We have vast power plants where from electricity is generated by burning coal and gas. Okay, what happens is this coal and gas gets burnt, it generates a whole lot of steam from what is effectively a giant fire, and this steam powers a generator, and the generator generates electricity, which is then pumped into the national grid, the power grid. Which brings me to the question, what is the power grid? Well, different countries run their power grid in different ways. Some very big countries have separate power grids. In the UK, for example, where I am, we have one national power grid. Okay, so what a grid is literally all of the power plants across the country in whatever form, fossil fuel or renewable energy, they pump their electricity into a national electrical power network. What happens is the supplier, the actual electricity and power fuel company, buys that electricity from the national grid and sells it to you as a retailer, and you are the customer. But it all comes from this grid. Yeah. So we come back to, what is the problem with fossil fuels? We've covered this before. We know that burning fossil fuels generates carbon dioxide, the main greenhouse gas that causes global warming. Yes, so clearly getting our electricity from fossil fuels is what we do not want. Another really simple reason why getting our fuel from fossil fuels is a problem is because they are going to run out. There is only a certain amount that is trapped underneath the Earth's surface that we drill for, and it is going to run out. Scientists have predicted that fossil fuels will be done with them, no more left, by 2050. We cannot go on like this. They are not an infinite resource. They are a finite resource that will run out. Remember, I said this program is about crunching really big concepts right down into the palm of your hand. So the question is, what percentage of global carbon dioxide emissions, global greenhouse gas emissions, come from our energy production and supply? Well, a whopping approximate 73% of all of our global emissions simply come from generating energy. It is kind of like the elephant in the room. 73% of our emissions comes from our energy production globally. So that's fossil fuels and how we get our power from them, our fuel to run our lives. And we know that they're a problem, a huge problem. So what about renewable energy? What is renewable energy? Well, firstly, it does what it says on the tin. It's renewable, so it means that you can get it again and again and again. Different to fossil fuels in that it's not going to run out. Okay, so what are our sources of renewable energy? Well, we've got the sun, solar power, solar rays, we've got water power, hydropower, and we've got wind power. All of these sources of power are not going to run out. They are natural sources that we can rely on to fuel and power our lives. So, how does solar power work? Well, solar panels are installed on buildings, and they're also set up, many of them, in big solar power farms. They're called photovoltaic panels. Heat from the sun's rays, hits these panels, and in doing so generates electricity. This electricity is fed from these panels into a solar inverter, which turns the electricity into an AC electrical current, which can be used in our homes and our buildings for our lives. The solar paneled power is either used immediately by that building, or in fact it's fed, if it's from a solar panel farm, a solar power farm, it's fed into the national grid, and then of course the suppliers get that power to sell to you. And the great news is this: as long as the earth is around, the sun's rays are a renewable resource for us. What about wind power? Well, the wind can be extremely forceful. We've all seen, either in real life or in photographs, windmills. And what they are is they're giant rotors. And what that does is when the wind hits it, it turns a generator. That generator, again, generates electricity, which gets fed into the national grid again. What about hydropower, water power? Well, anyone who's been for a swim in the sea knows that tides can be extremely powerful. There's two ways that we get power from water. One is through actually setting up generators within dams and controlling the water flow there so that we can get power from that water flow again as it hits a generator and the electricity is fed into the power grid. Or we've got tidal hydropower systems which tap into the extraordinary force and power of tides again to power a generator to create electricity. So let's cut to the chase. What is so great about renewable power sources? Well, they give off zero emissions. No carbon burnt means no carbon dioxide, okay? They are zero emissions power sources, so they are safe for our lives because they don't contribute to greenhouse gases and thus to global warming. Another fantastic thing about renewables, again, does what it says on the tin. They're not going to run out, not as long as our Earth is alive. Just a quick note for viewers about nuclear power and hydrogen. I don't cover these in this kind of starter unit on power. I know that they're zero emissions power sources, but for the start with this unit, I've kept it really, really clear about the difference between fossil fuels and renewables. Let's talk about the global power grid. Let's talk about all of the energy generated across the globe. Okay? What percentage of the global power grid for energy comes from fossil fuels? Well, this is the rub. 80% of the world's energy source, the globe's power grid, comes from fossil fuels. Right now, it's 2021, and clearly that is far too high. Here we are, we're in a position where we really shouldn't be. 80% of our global energy comes from fossil fuels. We need to be switching that up and greening our grid, greening our global power grid as soon as possible. All right, so to get a perspective on where we're at, let's just combine those two statistics. Think that 75% of global emissions come from our energy generation, all right? And that 80% of that energy generated comes from fossil fuels. And we get an idea of the scale of what is going on. So really, our target is that we have got to green, for a safe future, we have got to green our global grid. Or put in another way, we have got to decarbonize, to take away from carbon, our grid. We have got to switch our power sources to renewables and away from, obviously, our super dangerous fossil fuels. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about this in terms of step by step. That's the global power picture. We know in terms of gas, in the UK, gas is being phased out. By 2025, it will be illegal to install a gas boiler in a newly built building. What about cars? What about transport? We know as well that obviously the car industry, the motor industry, is constantly stepping up the production of electric cars. Largely, for example, here in the UK, for the so-called average consumer, electric cars tend to be first generation, a little bit of second generation electric cars available on the market, all right? There aren't many second-hand electric cars available. Let me say this. If an electric car, first-hand, new electric car is within your means, buy, stimulate the market, do something to continue to support our safe future. What happens is that every single time somebody supports an emerging green market, what it means is it widens the market for greater competition and greater consumer freedom within that market. So, as I'm in the UK, let's talk about the UK's power grid. All right? In terms of if you're not in the UK, the information regarding your country's power grid should be in the public domain because it is a matter of government information. You should be able to go online and check what percentage of your country's power, your country's energy comes from fossil fuels versus renewables. That should be in the public domain. In terms of the UK, the picture is as such. 40% of the UK's power grid comes from fossil fuel powered electricity. Yep. 40% of the UK's power grid does indeed already come from renewables. There is a lot of wind power in the UK. The last 20% comes from nuclear power and from power that is bought in from other countries. All right. So in terms of the global picture, the UK isn't doing so badly as an individual country compared to, with its 40% from renewables, 40% from fossil fuels, compared to the global picture, which is actually 80% in terms of the global grid, is still from fossil fuels. The UK is not doing too badly. So let's look at the UK's big six power suppliers. We've got British Gas, npower, E.ON, EDF, Scottish Power and SSE. Every single one of these so-called big six suppliers has got the option to switch to green power, to switch to your electricity source coming from renewable energy. I have checked this specifically for every single one of the big six UK companies myself. In the UK, E.ON, one of the power suppliers, indeed is entirely powered from renewable sources. There are also lots of new smaller power companies that are coming into being right now in the UK. Examples, Ecotricity, Bulb, that are entirely sourced from renewable power. Yes, it's possible. For each one of these big six power companies, a percentage of their total energy, their total power source, comes from fossil fuels and a percentage from renewables. However, as a consumer, believe me, you have got power. All right, I call it the eco pound, or wherever you are, the eco dollar, the eco euro. Spending your money will stimulate an environmental industry. I call this the elephant in the room unit because it's simply one of those ones that I've encountered in so many conversations with people. We talk about environmental issues, we talk about recycling, we talk about slowing down fast fashion, we talk about global warming, we talk about policy. All right, and when you ask people, where do you get your power from? They say, I don't know. And it's such a huge, simple, basic thing that we can indeed overlook it. But believe me, it is entirely possible in the UK with the big six companies to call them up. You are the account holder, or if you have any influence over somebody who is the account holder, to call them up, to contact them and to say that you wish to switch your account from fossil fuels to renewables. It is perfectly doable. Seriously, this is a huge, big deal. It is a big deal, and it is a good deal, and it is the right deal. And you really need to do it to make the difference, to move us away from that last 40% reliance on fossil fuels as our energy source, for example, in the UK. I just want to answer the question, is there anywhere in the world that's doing it right? Which countries are actually 100% powered from renewable sources? At the moment, There's actually three. Albania, Paraguay and Iceland all powered themselves from renewable energy. Granted, they are small countries. Nonetheless, we know that it is possible. Norway right now is at 97% from renewables. They've got a great hydropower source in Norway. Lots of water power. Right. So let's look at local solutions as well. In the UK and indeed around the world, we've got solar cooperatives. For example, there are around about 50 here in the UK. In Germany, there's around about 1,000 solar cooperatives. Fantastic organizations. What they do is they install solar panels in the UK currently on public buildings, businesses, council buildings, schools, youth clubs, etc. Okay? The solar panels, shares in these solar panels that are in fact installed on these buildings are sold to the public with a percentage return on their shareholder investment. That depends per solar cooperative. It depends with each one of the solar cooperatives, it changes. What happens is the electricity is generated from these solar panels. The electricity is fed back into the building on which the solar panels are placed. Any excess electricity is fed into the national power grid. Amazing, wonderful local solutions. Okay. In the UK, there is currently a bill that is being pushed and lobbied to be passed through Parliament, which is called the Local Electricity Bill. And what that will mean is that, in fact, solar cooperatives would be entitled to indeed sell the solar power that they actually generate on these buildings back to individual households locally, much as any usual big company electricity supplier would do. And in that way, something like the Local Electricity Bill in the UK would free up the generation of clean, green, local solar power. In Germany, there's already 1,000 cooperatives, solar cooperatives, and they are entitled to sell back to individual households. So it certainly goes some way towards greening the grid. It is a fantastic solution. If you would like to access the United Kingdom, the UK campaign on getting the electricity bill passed, go and visit the incredible powerforpeople.org.uk website, and you'll be able to check in and to link in with their fantastic campaign. There's also options there to lobby your local MP to get them to support the bill, to get it passed through Parliament. Yes, it would make a huge difference. Critically important, and I cannot stress this enough, is that every single person has got consumer power, because we are all consumers of power. Okay? You use power, so you have power, the power to choose. Okay? Now, this unit, as I said, is the elephant in the room unit. It's so basic we overlook it. And again, what I said is I ask people, where do you get your power from? And they say, I don't know. Okay? Yet, it's very, very, very easy to change the tariff to a green supply. Hopefully, in your own country, the infrastructure, meaning all the systems, the setup, that everything is ready for you to do the same. Okay? These are times when we need to step it up. We need to make those calls. We need to audit our lives in a really basic, simple way to check on some of the basics. And power and energy, 73% of global emissions comes from our energy production. 80% of the world's grid is still dependent on fossil fuels. This is the time. This is an action point. This is the time to make that call, to switch to clean, green power for a safe future. Of course, you might very well say, well, I'm not the account holder. I don't pay the power bill. I don't pay the energy bill. I don't pay for the electricity. That makes perfect sense. However, if you are around somebody who does pay that bill in your home environment, your work environment, your business, your school, your college, ask that key question. It's a really simple key question. Where do we get our power from? Is it from fossil fuels or is it from renewables? And you can actually let them know that there is a way to switch that up to make it safe. Okay? You don't have to be the account holder, but you certainly can also ask key questions of the person who is the account holder. Unit 2, power. Fossil fuels versus renewable energy. The next unit is Unit 3, consumption. What do we use and how do we use it? I'll be breaking consumption down into 4 areas: food, clothes, transport and equipment. The key issues down into the palm of your hand, and the key action points to contribute to a safe, sustainable future. Thank you so much for watching. This has been Unit 2, Power, Fossil Fuels versus Renewable Energy. I wanted to look at everything on a really clear, step-by-step basis. How does this work? What's behind it? What's the purpose to it? And I also, of course, wanted to look at it from the perspective of a global power picture and how you yourself can connect to that via the action point, which is changing your power supply to being from a clean, green, renewable energy source. It can be done. You can do all of this. Like, share, subscribe, hit the notifications bell. You'll get all of the content for this channel, certainly obviously as well for this program, Green Education Counts, as it comes out. New videos for my projects that are already on the channel: Project Alteration, Urban Green Plan, Eco Housing Project, and an activist digital toolkit, as well as others that I'm planning for the forthcoming time. Thank you so much for watching. This is Green Education Counts, eco-education for all. Environmental education is a human right. You have the right to know. I'm Nicola Kench, and this is the Groundswell Ecosystems YouTube channel. Everyday and systemic steps towards an eco-positive groundswell.